I've just come back from a longish but very wet ride on my Orbea Gain e-bike. And this ride hopefully will answer one of the questions I wanted to know before I bought the bike. And that is, just how long will the battery last? Anyway, I'll go through some of the data so you can see how long it lasted for me on this ride. And I'll make some estimates of how long I could ride the bike until the battery is exhausted. However, before that, I'll tell you a bit about myself and the ride so that you can judge for yourself how long the battery might last for you.
I'm not the lightest rider in the world, and I estimate myself, my e-bike, clothes, tools, etc. are about 112.5 kilos. That'll give you an idea of how much work the motor will have to do up hills. I'm 1.82 meters tall, and I tend to set my handlebars relatively high. Typically, when fit, on a longer ride like the one I'm going to show you, I would average around about 200 watts. That would give me an average speed of 25 to 30 kilometers an hour, so above the e-bike cutout speed. As for the bike, it's pretty much a standard Orbea Gain D20 with the 250 watt motor and 250 watt hour battery. I have not modified the bike, so the motor cuts out at 25 kilometers an hour. The ride I went on today was 85 kilometers and it had 780 meters of climbing. This consisted of a lot of small hills rather than a few large ones. I don't consider this a hilly route, but certainly a moderately undulating one. My average speed was 24.4 kilometers an hour. So the motor could have been engaged for up to half of the ride. This graph shows the assist level selected throughout the ride. It's not the motor power, as that responds to rider input and to speed. For the first 2/3 of the ride, I was mainly using level 1 with the occasional level 2. Later on in the ride, as the battery was lasting well, I decided to up the assistance levels.
After my rather cold, wet ride, I've now had a shower and warmed up. So let's look at that range issue that I was talking about.
The top graph shows the battery charge status throughout the ride. For cross-reference, the lower one shows the assistance level that I had the bike set to. I started the ride with the battery at 95%. I consumed 52% of the battery during the ride, which left me with 43%. So what I would consider a normal ride for me that covered 85 kilometers or 53 miles used 52% of the battery. I can scale this to see what range I would get from the full battery. However, once the battery reaches 15%, the system will automatically change to level 1 assistance. And when the battery has only 10% charge left in it, it will turn off. So I'll base my calculations on the battery having a maximum charge of 85%. This will give a total battery range of 140 kilometers or 87 miles. Before I bought the bike, I made some assumptions about the range. I assumed that I would ride mainly at half power, that is 125 watts. At that rate, the motor should drive the bike for 1 3/4 hours. I also assumed that half the time I would be above the motor cut-off speed, so the battery should last for a ride duration of 3.5 hours. That would equate to a ride distance of about 87 kilometers or just over 50 miles. So when I found the real world range for me was well over 100 kilometers, I was delighted. Now that range very much depends on the terrain that you're riding in and your riding style. I think for most riders, unless you really do let the motor do most of the work, you should get well in excess of 100 kilometers. When the weather gets better, I'll take this on a 100-kilometer hillier ride. If you don't want to miss that content, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you have an e-bike, I'll be interested to know what range you get. From me, for now, it's goodbye.